On Easter morning, many people gently tap two eggs together before eating them. It feels like a small game, almost like nothing. But this quiet act carries a story that began in a world where survival was never certain. As this story unfolds, you will hear how English describes belief, history, and change in simple, natural ways. You will also feel how stories can teach language without stopping the flow. If this feels familiar, share it with someone you spend Easter with, and tell me in the comments, do you follow any small Easter habit without knowing why? Some traditions feel so normal that we never stop to look at them. A painted egg, a sweet piece of bread, a quiet meal with family. These things feel light, almost simple. On Easter, many people follow these habits without thinking. They wake up, they sit together, they eat, they smile. But under these soft moments, there is a much older story. A story that is not always gentle. A story that carries both light and shadow at the same time. This is not just a story about Easter. This is a story about people and how we hold both fear and hope inside us. Long before churches and bells, people lived very close to nature. They watched the sky every day. They watched the sun rise and fall. They felt the cold deeply in their bodies. Winter was not just a season for them. It was a threat. The days were short, the nights were long. Food became hard to find. Some families did not survive until spring. This is hard to hear, but it was real. People lived with a quiet fear that the warmth might never return. Then, slowly, something changed. The sun stayed a little longer. The air softened. Ice began to melt. The small green plants pushed through the cold ground. This moment felt like a kind of victory. Not loud, but deeply felt. People began to celebrate this change. They made fires. They shared food. They told stories about life returning after death. In some northern lands, people spoke about a figure named Eostre. She was linked to the dawn, the first light of the day. She was also linked to spring, when the world slowly wakes up again. There were symbols connected to her. A hare, which is a kind of wild rabbit. It moves fast. It has many young. People saw it as a sign of strong life. And then there was the egg. An egg looks still, closed, almost empty. But inside, something is growing. This idea stayed with people. It felt true, not only in nature, but in life. Dear listener, think about it for a moment. Something can look quiet on the outside while something important grows inside. I think this is one of the most comforting ideas we have. These early festivals were not about one belief. They were about survival, about reaching the end of a long, cold time. But history does not stay still. Far to the south and east, in a place very different from cold forests, another story was taking shape. This place was warm, dry, and full of tension. The land was under the control of a powerful force, the Roman Empire. An empire means a large group of lands ruled by one power. The people living there did not feel free. They paid heavy taxes. Soldiers walked their streets. Many felt anger, but also fear. This created a very fragile situation. Fragile means easy to break. In this tense world, a man named Jesus Christ began to speak. He did not speak about power. He spoke about kindness, about loving others, about a different way of living. Many ordinary people listened to him. They felt something new in his words, something calm. But not everyone felt safe with him. The leaders in that society had a difficult position. They wanted to keep peace with the Roman rulers. If the people became too excited, too hopeful, it could turn into rebellion. Rebellion means people rising up against control. and rebellion often ended in bloodshed, which means violent loss of life. So the leaders watched him closely. At first it was only concern, then it became fear. This is where the story becomes heavier. Jesus entered the city of Jerusalem during a busy festival. The streets were full. The air was tense. Crowds gathered around him. Some believed he could change everything. To the leaders, this looked dangerous. A quiet plan began to form. One of his own followers, a man named Judas, agreed to help the leaders. This act is called betrayal. Betrayal means breaking trust in a painful way. This moment carries a quiet sadness. Trust, once broken, is very hard to repair. Jesus was arrested at night, not in the open, but in silence. He was taken to the Roman authorities. They accused him of claiming to be a king. In the Roman world, this was a serious crime. The Roman governor, Pontius Pilate, made a decision. The punishment was crucifixion. This was a very harsh form of execution. Execution means a person is put to death as punishment. The person was fixed to a wooden cross and left to die slowly in public. It was meant to create fear. Jesus was taken to a hill. He was placed on the cross. The day grew quiet. His followers watched from a distance. Many felt lost. Many felt afraid. This is the deepest shadow in the story. A man who spoke about love was now gone. For a moment, it felt like hope had ended. Dear listener, there are times in life that feel like this. Times when something good ends suddenly. Times when we feel empty. The story could have ended here, but it did not. And this is where everything begins to change again. Because after this moment of silence, something unexpected was about to happen. Something that would connect this painful story to the old stories of spring, of eggs, and of life returning. And this connection is where the true secret of Easter slowly begins to reveal itself. For a short time, everything was still. The body of Jesus was placed in a tomb. A tomb is a place where a body is kept after death. Not a large stone was rolled in front of it. Guards stood nearby. His followers hid in quiet rooms. They spoke in low voices. Fear filled the space between them. It felt like the story had ended. But then, early in the morning, something unexpected happened. A few women walked to the tomb. They wanted to care for the body. When they arrived, they stopped. The stone was moved. The entrance was open. They stepped closer. The space inside was empty. This moment is known as the resurrection. Resurrection means coming back to life after death. For those who believed, this changed everything. The silence turned into movement. Fear began to soften. A new idea spread from person to person. That idea was simple but very powerful. Life can return, even after loss. Dear listener, this is the turning point, the place where darkness and light meet in the same story. And here is where something very interesting begins. This new belief did not grow in an empty space. It grew in a world that already had its own stories about life returning. Stories about winter ending. Stories about the earth waking up. So over time, these ideas moved closer together. The resurrection story and the old spring festivals began to share the same space. The timing was similar. The feeling was similar. Both spoke about new life. Both spoke about change after stillness. This did not happen in one day. It took many years. In the early centuries, people followed the story of Jesus in small groups. They met quietly. They shared food. They remembered his words. At the same time, older traditions continued. People still celebrated the coming of spring. They still used eggs as symbols. Slowly, these two worlds began to blend. This blending is called assimilation. Assimilation means different ideas coming together to form something new. At first it was not planned, but later it became more organized. In the 4th century, a powerful leader named Constantine the Great accepted Christianity. This changed many things. Before this, Christians were often in danger. Now, the belief began to move into the center of society. There was one problem. Different groups celebrated the resurrection on different days. This caused confusion. So, leaders came together in a meeting called the Council of Nicaea. They wanted to create one clear rule. They decided that Easter would be celebrated on the first Sunday after the first full moon that follows the spring equinox. The spring equinox is the day when day and night are equal in length. This decision is very important. It tied the Christian story directly to the natural cycle of the earth. It connected faith with the rhythm of nature. This was not only about belief, it was also about unity. Unity means bringing people together. The church understood something simple. People already felt something special during spring, so instead of removing that feeling, they built on it. They kept the time. They kept some symbols, but they gave them new meaning. Eggs were no longer only about nature, they also became a sign of resurrection. The idea stayed the same at its core. Something closed, something still. Then suddenly, life. In many places, people began to decorate eggs. They used bright colors. Red often stood for sacrifice, which means giving something up in a deep way. Other colors showed joy and life. The hare or rabbit also stayed. It became a softer, more playful symbol. Children loved it. Families kept it. And so a quiet balance formed. Old symbols, new meanings, ancient fears, new hope. Dear listener, think about how natural this is. We do not often remove the past. We carry it forward. We reshape it. I think this is one of the most gentle strengths of people. We do not always break things. Sometimes we blend them. But not everything was peaceful. There were times when old traditions were pushed away. Some people saw them as wrong. Others tried to protect them. This created tension. In some regions, celebrations became more serious. In others, they stayed joyful and open. Over time, however, a kind of balance returned. The Easter became both a quiet religious day and a wider cultural celebration. In medieval Europe, this day held great meaning. People prepared for it through a period called Lent. Lent is a time of waiting and giving up small comforts. They ate simple food. They spent time in reflection. This made Easter feel stronger. After a period of control and silence, the day of celebration felt full and bright. Church bells rang early in the morning. The sound spread through towns and villages. People gathered together. They wore their best clothes. Inside churches, candles lit the space. Light pushed back the darkness. The story of resurrection was told again. Outside, life felt lighter. Children played. Families shared meals. Eggs returned to the table after being avoided during Lent. They were boiled, painted, and given as gifts. And this act carried both old and new meanings at the same time. In some places, people played games with eggs. They rolled them on the ground. They tapped them together. The last egg to break was seen as strong. It may sound like a small tradition, but small traditions often hold deep ideas. They give shape to feelings that are hard to explain. During these times, life was still uncertain. Illness could come quickly. War could change everything. So Easter was not only about joy, it was also a quiet answer to fear. It reminded people that even after loss, something could begin again. And this idea stayed alive. It traveled through years, through cities, through changing worlds, until it reached the modern life we know now. And when it arrived here, it did not disappear. It simply changed its shape once more. In the modern world, life feels very different from those early days. Most people do not watch the sky to survive. They do not wait for the sun with fear in their hearts. Food is easier to find. Homes are warmer. Days move by the clock, not by the seasons. And yet, something inside the Easter story still feels close. You wake up on that day. The morning is a little quieter. The light feels soft on the walls. There is a small pause in the usual rush. Even if you do not notice it fully, it is there. In some homes, people still follow the old religious meaning. They sit together. They speak about the story of resurrection. They light candles. They take time to reflect, which means to think deeply and calmly. In other homes, the day feels lighter. Children search for hidden eggs. They laugh. They run. Parents watch with gentle smiles. There is chocolate. There are small gifts. It may look very different from the past, but the feeling under it is not so different. Dear listener, think about your own life for a moment. There are times when things feel heavy, times when you feel stuck, days when nothing seems to move. Then slowly, something shifts. A new thought comes. A problem becomes softer. A feeling changes, even if just a little. It is not loud. It does not ask for attention. It simply arrives. This is the same quiet pattern that lives inside the Easter story. It is not only about a day. It is about a cycle. A cycle means something that repeats again and again. Winter to spring. Loss to return. Silence to movement. Even the symbols we see today still carry this message. An egg rests in your hand. It looks simple, still, closed. But inside, there is life waiting. And this idea has not changed in thousands of years. Only the way we see it has changed. In modern cities, Easter is often shaped by shops and bright displays. Chocolate eggs fill store windows. Wrappers shine under strong lights. It is easy to think that the meaning has become smaller. But maybe it has only become quieter. The act of giving a small gift is still a form of care. The act of sharing a meal is still a form of connection. The act of pausing for a day is still a form of rest. And rest is something many people need. In a fast world, a slow moment becomes very valuable. I think this is where the hidden secret becomes clear. Easter has always been about something that cannot be rushed. Growth. Growth in nature. Growth in belief. Growth inside a person. And growth takes time. It happens when we are not looking. It happens in silence. It happens when we think nothing is changing. There is something very gentle in that idea. You do not need to force everything. You do not need to become something new in one day. You are already in a process, just like the earth in winter, just like the seed under the soil, just like the egg before it opens. Dear listener, this is not only history. This is your life. There are parts of you that are still forming, thoughts that are still growing, changes that are already beginning, even if you cannot see them yet. Easter reminds us of this in a very quiet way. It does not speak loudly. It simply shows. As the day slowly comes to an end, the light fades again. The table becomes empty. The voices grow soft. The decorations are put away. The sweets are gone. Life begins to return to its usual pace. But something small stays behind. A feeling that change is always possible. A quiet belief that something new can begin, even after stillness. The next time you hold an egg or notice the first warm air after a cold season, you may pause for a second. Not because you have to, but because something inside you remembers that even in the most silent moments, something is always growing. And that is enough.